So my wife, my soulmate life partner, the best friend I ever had, and the mother of my babies, has found her twin flame. And it ain't me. The divine has assigned my most dearly beloved to another. And so here begins the story of what's happened to she and me. And we'll start way back before I had any idea what twin flames were. First, a little bit about myself. I have a background in engineering and law. That's what I do for the day job, to keep the lights on and all. But in my real life, I'm a musician, DJ, and artist. And while I've always considered myself a spiritual person, my spiritual understanding had been kept strictly within a conventional Abrahamic context. As a child, I did embrace the other side, and I did dabble with the unseen, but that was found out and it was resoundingly shamed out of me in my youth. So I abandoned my interest in the occult, and I focused on developing my scientific, legal, rational, analytical mind. And doing so had served me fairly well in the 3D material world. So I wound up meeting the girl of my dreams 15 years ago, under circumstances that could only be described as divine alignment. She was such a perfect fit for me in so many different ways. I'd never met anyone who got me the way she did. A year and a half after we first met, and after we'd played house for a while, I proposed to her while on stage with a guitar around my neck in a venue full of concert goers. And since then, our marriage had been a wonderful ride, with 2 children and typical ups and downs, but nothing we'd never been able to ride out and overcome. So a year ago, my wife left town for a weekend to attend her college reunion. I stayed home with the kids, and when it came time to pick her up from the airport upon her return, she was quite visibly different. She was unusually distant, and it was obvious that she was mentally preoccupied with something quite substantial. That night, even though she was unable to explain what was going on inside her, she still tried to be present for me. But things were most definitely off. Something was up, and I had no idea what. So this newfound weirdness continued for a week. She was withdrawn, engaging very little, with a cold external demeanor hiding something deeply intense churning within. After a week of this, I finally approached her and asked her what was going on. She had to take a minute to get the language right, but lay it out for me she did. She told me that when she went to reunion, she reconnected with an old classmate of hers. That over the course of that weekend, the 2 of them kept crossing each other's paths over and over again in ways that couldn't possibly be coincidental, and that since their reconnection, she's felt an overwhelming explosion of intense unconditional love and boundless joy toward him, a sense of oneness with him that she's never felt with anyone before, and a sense that the divine has brought them together and that she'll never be the same, but that she still cared for me. I took a moment to process all this, and then I asked her if that meant she wanted to leave me and break up the family. She told me frankly that she didn't know. Now, having been divorced previously when I was young and stupid, I was determined to handle this situation better than when my first marriage was in imminent danger. So I kept a cool head, and I suggested she call him and figure out what's what. She dipped off to do just that, and I sat down to ponder what had just hit me. She reappeared after a while, saying the 2 of them had spoken and that she had no plans to leave. Feeling about as reassured as I could under the circumstances, I took her at her word, and I was ready to move on with her from there. And then shit got weird. As time went on, more and more bizarre symptoms kept manifesting. She told me she had these burning sensations toward him that keep her awake at night, or they'd turn up and throw her off balance when she was trying to maintain her professionalism at work. She told me she was seeing numerical synchronicities turning up everywhere. She kept seeing 1111. She kept seeing triple numbers wherever she looked. It got so crazy that she kept a journal of all the 222s, 444s, 777s that kept raining down on her from billboards and grabbing her attention from every other license plate on the road. One day while she was out driving, after she'd seen her 50th angel number of the day, she couldn't take anymore. She pulled over to the side of the road and she asked God what was going on, what did it all mean, and what she was supposed to do. Oh, yeah, and I almost forgot. She also told me that she felt an undeniable psychic bond forging with him. She could feel him connecting with her on another plane, and she was finding that she could connect with him too. They could even communicate with each other in their dreams, and this bond was growing stronger. Now as for me, I had no idea how to handle this situation, so I read books about codependency, and I tried detaching as best I could. I was utterly blind navigating this situation, so I focused on being my best me. I stopped eating so much crap, I started working out again, I lost a lot of weight, and I spent a lot more time meditating nearby at the lake to get my mind right. Meanwhile, my wife's journey grew ever more bizarre. We live in a shoebox in the city, so about the only place she can be completely alone is inside her walk-in closet. And she began hanging out in that closet more and more as time went on. From that closet, I could overhear her listening to metaphysical YouTube videos. You know, the videos which are precisely 11 minutes and 11 seconds long, with mystical wind chimes and shit, saying stuff like,
"This is a divine transmission from the Archangel Baphomet. If you are receiving this message, then you are of the elect chosen."
Yeah, you know, stuff like that. Because nothing sounds more spiritually organic and divinely manifested than a fucking robot. Now, my wife had always been more in tune with the spiritual world than I'd been. She has, gifts, and I knew what I was signing up for when I married her. But the weirdness continued to mount in new and unprecedented ways. She'd be in that damn closet for hours on end after the kids and I went to bed. Now, mind you, I really wanted to respect her privacy and leave her free to find her truth however she needed to. But there was this one night. I'd gotten to bed around 9ish, since I had work the following morning. I'd awoken around 1 a.m. or so, still all alone in bed. Since I couldn't easily go back to sleep, I decided to try sitting up and meditating. And while trying to meditate, that's when I overheard it. She was all alone in that closet, and yet she was, connecting with him. We'll skip the details, but let's just say there was one hot party going on, and I was not invited. Once she was done, she got up out of the closet and headed to bed, and that's when I lost it. My tolerance level had peaked. All my feelings I tried ignoring, of getting othered within my own marriage, of being demoted to a third wheel in some kind of cosmic love triangle. I couldn't take it anymore. I let loose exactly how I felt about this situation, holding nothing back. At first she was defiant, claiming she owed me no explanation. Then after I told her how ready I was to end things and how free she was to go be with her new love, she calmed down considerably. She then tried convincing me that I needn't feel like our marriage was threatened by this. Yes, really. He lives 1,000 miles away, he has a completely different lifestyle, and it's not like she was actually fucking him, so what was the problem? Now, not really wanting my family home broken up, and not wanting to forever lose a woman I still very dearly loved, I backed down, and I accepted things for a while. But you already know what happened. Things kept heading further and further out there. As time went on, I started feeling more like Darren on Bewitched or Peter Venkman in Ghostbusters. I was well aware of all this paranormal activity going on around me, right under my nose, but since I was utterly powerless over it, I tried learning to live with it. One night she came home, telling me how her phone was malfunctioning. She had no music app on at all, but then out of nowhere, her phone would start loudly blaring love songs that were oddly specific to her situation. She told me it was a sign from him, trying to reach out to her. So what does this mean for me? Over time, she became ever more emboldened. She'd tell me things like, "I really wish you could feel this love I'm feeling so you'd know how pure it is." What the fuck is a husband supposed to do with that kind of intel? She'd also spend extended periods of time staring at the ketubah on our wall like never before. That's a Jewish marriage contract, which is often displayed on the wall in Jewish homes. She'd read it line by line over and over again. And only in retrospect did I see what she was up to. She was convincing herself that loving another man didn't violate any of the marital terms she signed up for with me. So this tension developed. I found myself feeling like I was competing for my wife's affections with a damn specter. Curiously enough, our love life continued to flourish and even improve, but I also came to find out that she'd have him on her mind while she was with me. So make of that what you will. Some days we got along fine, but of course some days the tension would build and we'd get into it. Late one night, while sitting at the dining room table, she told me straight up that her inner guidance told her that he was her one true soulmate. Now this bewildered me every bit as much as it broke my heart, because for the past 14 years, right up until our peculiar situation began, we'd been nothing but true soulmates to each other. She understood me and had loved me like no one else ever had before, and I her. She really was the best friend I'd ever had. So when she told me that following her destiny required her to leave, I was shattered. I asked how she could bear to break up our family, and she looked me dead in the eye and replied, "But we'll always be family." Yeah, it took all the self-discipline I had to remain cool. Now at that time, she had an upcoming business trip that would bring her nearby him. I was desperately wanting to be on the other side of this whole mess, So I encouraged her to meet up with him to sort this whole matter out once and for all. Not long after that, she did, and she came back home to tell me they agreed to keep things just as they were. I felt relieved by that, so relieved that I asked her if she was willing to renew our wedding vows so we could put this all behind us. She shot me back a most awkward look while declining my proposal. So at that point, I knew I needed to work even more on myself and my own self-mastery, because there was no telling how soon I need to rely entirely upon me. I'd heard about Vipassana meditation and how folks were transformed by it. So I signed up for it. I saved up to cover for the 2 weeks of work that I'd missed, and I set off on my own Vipassana retreat. And it was indeed transformative. I used that time to sort through my own baggage and fight my own demons. And in so doing, I learned more about myself and learned to love myself like never before. And guess what I came back home to? She greeted me with the warmest embrace. She looked genuinely interested as I shared with her all the details of my Vipassana experience. And then as she dipped off to the kitchen to go get some things together, I happened to glance over at her laptop. I happened to notice she'd left a multitude of browser tabs open, and I happened to notice that those browser tabs all dealt with how a woman could most effectively write a love letter to a man. Now, having just returned from the deepest spiritual experience of this life, the very last thing I wanted to do was fight with my wife, so I pretty much let it slide, for the time being. To this day, I think a part of her wanted to get caught. She's not at all a messy or shady person by nature, quite the contrary. So I really doubt she'd have left all those incriminating browser tabs open the day I got home from a 12-day trip, unless subconsciously she was trying to force the matter out into the open. Over the next month, the ups and downs continued exaggerating. The love life got downright fantastic, but when we clashed, it got bad. Sometimes it got so bad, the fact that I had young children counting on me was the one thing that kept me from making plans with our high-rise living room window. It had all gotten so bizarre, and I was so desperate for answers, that I did something I never would have even considered just a few months prior. I had no rational explanation for what was happening. In fact, the only explanations I had were inherently paranormal. So I was convinced that she was under a love spell of some sort. Now mind you, I never believed such things were even possible until I found myself in this peculiar situation. So I googled all about how to break a love spell. Yes, really. And I presented my findings to her with my pleading that she must break the spell she's under in order to save our marriage and family. She gave me a look that said, "Oh, bless your heart," and she snuggled me quite sincerely. I gave her these instructions I found online about setting the intention to break the spell and various other steps, and after that I was certain I'd done my part to fix everything. A night or two after that, I'd awoken in the wee hours from some vague nightmare about betrayal and loss. My startled awakening had awoken her too, and she asked me if I was okay. I replied only, "Did you set the intention to break the spell?" She gave me a dumb look that clearly indicated no. I asked, "Did you set the intention to evict this trespasser in our marriage?" She rolled her eyes and shook her head. So you already know what happened next. In the middle of that night, I proceeded to verbally let her have it. Verbally, let me be clear. I was in a state of such deep, unfathomable pain, and I needed her to get just a taste of what utter fucking hell I'd been through. I did not devote the past 14 years giving her the best life I possibly could, only to be made into some cosmic cuckold. So after I finished speaking my piece, I made it plain that it was either he or me. And quite calmly she replied that if forced to choose, it'd be I who'd lose, because this was no ordinary dynamic she had with him, she explained. It was a twin flame dynamic. Huh?